Joined as always by John Ramdeen and Robin Black, and we are going to start things off with November the 12th, which is going to be a very big date for the UFC. Not only is it their anniversary, but their first card at Madison Square Garden, and slowly it looks like that card is being formed. Dana White spoke to a sports station out of Cleveland and stated that it looks like everything has been signed off, and we are going to get a welterweight fight involving former champion Robbie Lawler and Donald Cerrone.
Sensational. I mean, this is a fight. I think we were talking about this over the last number of weeks, especially since it feels like Donald Cerrone has found a home at 170 pounds and all the great fights that we could see with Donald Cerrone. But just let that marinate. What we're going to see in this fight with Robbie Lawler and Donald Cerrone. I can't picture anything but pure action for the 15 minutes or 25 minutes, depending on where
I think 15 is probably our bet. That this will not be the main event, but certainly this will be a big fight at welterweight. And talk about two guys that are in different stages, where Donald Cerrone looks to just be on fire at 170. Robbie Lawler is coming off that really tough loss to Tyron Woodley. They're meeting at a very unique time in both of their careers.
But if we just remove that little Woodley sliver, just take that out, take that one out, and they're both going like this because, and yes, you can't ignore that huge right hand landed. Duke calls it the curveball. It looks like the straight, but it actually arcs to the outside. But that's one punch, and everybody's going to get hit by one punch. It is a legitimate accomplishment from Woodley, well deserved, totally earned, and it is a error in judgment from Lawler, so you can't ignore it. But if we just remove that minute from there and look at Lawler's last few years and take those two guys, take him and Cowboy and put that together, wow, that's insane. That is absolutely nuts. And when Cowboy was going up, and people outside of Canada maybe haven't looked at Cote on the level that we've got to up here in Canada, he's a phenomenal fighter, never looked better. And we thought that was going to be a big test for Donald, moving up in weight to a legitimate middleweight who is a nutritionist, who can cut weight like that, very good everywhere. Boom, cut right through him. Nobody's ever dealt with Pat like that. And then Rick Story, we're like, come on, this is a legitimate top 5 welterweight. See what he did to Rick Story? Anybody? One down, bang, head kick. Whew. So if you thought maybe you look back to Condit versus Lawler, or you look back to Rory versus Lawler and try to imagine Cowboy there, he's there. I won't pick against Cowboy ever again. Amazing fight.
It would be quite the scenario to let itself play out, that 4 fights in. I mean, Donald Cerrone beats a Robbie Lawler. This guy is absolutely in discussions in that title mix.
I think it was, as soon as you saw the outcome of that Rick Story fight, it just came to me, it was, as long as Donald Cerrone stays at 170 pounds, you could put this guy in a title fight. You're trying to sell pay-per-views. Is Tyron Woodley the guy that's going to sell pay-per-views? I don't think so. I think most of us that have followed Tyron Woodley from Strikeforce, you recognize what you have. He just doesn't have the fan base of somebody like George St. Pierre or a guy like Conor McGregor or Donald Cerrone. So if you're trying to sell pay-per-views, Donald Cerrone's the guy that you can guarantee that people are going to tune in to see.
You mentioned selling pay-per-views, and Dave Meltzer at MMAfighting.com, who is the aficionado when it comes to pay-per-view business, is reporting that it looks like UFC 202 is going to finish around 1.65 million buys. It would make it the most purchased event in UFC history.
Overhyped McGoober.
Nate's not a needle mover.
Well, that's a hell of a needle. I think that you can talk about being moved by Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor. Do you feel that Conor McGregor needs to be headlining this card in November at Madison Square Garden? When you look at your main eventers available, we know Ronda's not going to be on that card. She's being discussed for possibly the end of the year show, but for November, do you need something that big?
I mean, it's New York City, so I mean, we know that the UFC has been trying to get there for years and years and years. I would expect that they would try to put some of their biggest stars on that card in Madison Square Garden. I'm sure the UFC brass has been hammered with all of the fighters from the tri-state area begging to get on that card. It's a destination for, I think, most fighters. I want to compete at Madison Square Garden in the first ever show. So I'm sure Chris Weidman, I'm sure Frankie Edgar, I'm sure all of those guys have been calling the UFC trying to get on that card, but maybe Conor's the guy.
How many kajillion?
Yeah, 1.65 million.
I mean, do they need that on the card? No, but do you ever really need 1.6 million? You take it every card. You take that every card you can. Alvarez versus McGregor, if they can make it, they'll make it. And let's be honest, they're going to sell out MSG. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. But they don't just want to sell it out and get some pay-per-views. And there's not a lot of human beings sitting around going, what am I going to do Saturday? Well, the UFC's on. Who's fighting? I don't know, whoever. Oh, but it's in Madison Square Garden? Sign me up for that. Like, you don't get pay-per-views just because it's in a cool arena. Yeah. You get 10 seconds of everybody freaking out at the beginning. You get Buffer saying something about MSG, and then it's over. McGruber, overhyped McGruber versus Eddie Alvarez. That's what you're going to get.
I love it.
Yeah, we should also make mention reports out there that Thiago Alves will fight Ali Aquinta at 155 pounds on that card.
Love it.
It is taking shape. As we mentioned, there's a new series premiering this week called Retrospective, airing Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The first episode features a very engaging sit-down with Rory McDonald, and here's a preview of Retrospective.
I remember him being intense. I remember his energy. He was like, he wanted to kill me. I remember when he looked at me. I've seen him in other fights. He stares people down like that and he intimidates them. But I don't like being intimidated by people. Even though I was gassed and all I wanted to do was sit on that bench, I wasn't gonna let him just walk all over me, you know, like stare me down and make me go sit down on a bench like a bitch. So I was gonna stay there as long as I had to until the ref separated it, and that's what I did. I was on my way back to turn. I seen he was doing that to me, so I turned back around with whatever energy I had to, you know, to give it right back.
That fight and much more covered with Rory McDonald on the debut episode of Retrospective. Tune in Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Fight Network.